This book has been a real labor of love since the beginning. I've got the initial email from Carol Jellick and Ellie Altman. Ellie is the executive director of Adkins Arboretum, and Carol is now on the board there. She was a volunteer at the time. To ask about whether I would be interested in writing a book about what individuals, homeowners and gardeners alike, could do to make their landscapes more bay friendly. And we had some meetings. This was back in November 2009. We had meetings. I developed an outline. I got them to comment on it. We revised it, and then we put together a proposal because we needed to find a publisher. Or the other option was Adkins. Adkins has done some of its own publishing. They did the Bay Handbook for the Bay. They've done a couple of things like that. But we prepared a proposal, and we sent it to the University of North Carolina Press and got an almost immediate positive reaction. They wanted to publish it. So once they had a contract, once Adkins had a contract with UNC Press, I got to work, and the manuscript itself went in April 1st, 2013, and then it went through their review process. They have independent, anonymous reviewers. Adkins, we put together a budget. Adkins considered publishing the book it's themselves because they have published the Handbook for the Bay, and since this came out, or just before this came out, they published Handbook for the Buffer, which has designs for plantings in the buffer areas along the waterfronts. But we got a positive. The first time out the chute, we sent a proposal in the outline to University of North Carolina Press, and they were really excited about it. And so Adkins and UNC Press came up with a contract. They contracted with me. I contracted with my photographer. And we got started. Once the contract was signed, it was mostly me working, figuring out, because I'm a horticulturist and I want to write about plants, but I also want to write about options for people from homeowners who don't garden to fanatic gardeners. That whole range of audience. There's information in this book for all those people. Because I know there are people who love the Bay dearly who don't really want to garden. Well, there are things that they can do to make their landscape more Bay friendly, and there are things that the fanatic gardener can do, or the people with a great estate that want to have a long-term plan. The other thing I wanted to do, was very important to me to do, is to let people discover what their own path is. I don't tell you, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this. What I came up with 6 points that make that cover the basic elements of what a sustainable garden is. Reduce lawn, build plant diversity in your own yard, grow native plants, manage water runoff, welcome wildlife, and garden wisely. And in chapter 1, there are 10 projects that anybody can do to give them an idea of what moving toward one of these goals entails. Getting rid of a little patch of grass, planting a native shrub that maybe feeds birds in the fall, that sort of thing. So there's all kinds of ways that people can come up with their own individual ideas of what will work for their lives and their lifestyle and how much time they want to spend gardening, and take a step in the right direction. And I hope once they take one, they'll want to take 2, or they'll want to convince their neighbors to take a couple, or another neighbor. So I think that's the way to help move us toward landscapes that are more sustainable and more Bay friendly. But the native plants in this region, to answer your question, are one of the reasons California has such a drought problem is that much of their landscape, this is above and beyond the problems with farming and the amount of water they use in farms, but in California, the native plants are fine with the amount of rainfall that falls naturally on, whether you're talking about California or whether you're talking about here in Maryland or Virginia. So if you look at native plants, yes, they need some extra care to get them established and to make sure they look nice for a garden, but they are generally able to withstand the conditions that are natural here, meaning you don't necessarily have to weed, you don't have to water. They are fine with the amount of cold and the amount of heat, which is another problem. Any plant we grow successfully here in the Chesapeake Bay region needs to be able to take summer heat and humidity. It's one reason they can grow delphiniums in the Pacific Northwest and they don't work here. I've always been interested in plants. I had a great aunt who told me in 3rd grade that I was going to be a landscape architect, believe it or not. But I didn't really figure out what I wanted to study about it. I had thought about botany, but traditional botany is about herbarium specimens or about cellular functioning, and that wasn't quite what I wanted. And I went to Kenyon College, which is a liberal arts college in Ohio. And when I graduated, I transferred all my credits from my liberal arts, and I was a fine art major, to Ohio State University, and I got a 2nd degree in horticulture, Bachelor of Science. And that's where it all started. And one of the great gifts of writing Chesapeake Gardening and Landscaping was it's our watershed, it's our plants, it's what we need to do for our area. And it's from the eastern shore all the way to the eastern continental divide, and as I said, north to the Maryland border, and then south to Virginia. And I have a rule in my garden: if something can't survive without being sprayed, it can go. Because spraying stuff is not, above and beyond the fact that it's not, it kills things. I just don't need that work. The other reason to not use herbicides is that I think gardeners need to get used to the idea of having a garden attract insects. The vast majority of insects you see in a garden are either benign or they're beneficial. It's very easy for a beginning gardener to look and see a bug and say, "Oh, I got to kill it." Well, that's not. It's generally you're looking at something that just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you have a diverse ecosystem, then something's going to take care of it before it does any harm. The other reason you want to support insects is that the vast majority of birds, even birds that eat seeds at other times of the year, need insects to feed their babies because it's a good source of protein. They don't feed seeds to baby birds, generally, most species. And so thinking about your landscape, and this is a leap for many people, thinking about your landscaping as a place where you're supporting insects and you're hoping for lots of insects is a step that, if we would all take it, wildlife would be